Well, it's official. What we once knew about conservative Christian politics has come to an end. And for proof of this, all you need to do is take a look at the recent Benny Johnson interview with Andrew Tate and why it's causing so much division in the Conservative Party. So for context, let's just be clear about where we came from. Political conservative Christianity was traditionally unified by things like conventional family structures, integrity, and biblical faithfulness. But in the last decade, there's been a drastic shift from being united by conservative and biblical principles to contrarian figures who don't share Christian or conservative values at all. And all of this is why Benny Johnson's interview with Tate was the final straw for so many Christian conservatives, primarily because of how Benny engaged with Tate during their interview.
And someone who I think will deliver absolute profound takes on what is happening right now, because he himself has been the victim of state-sponsored incarceration, lawfare, and abuses of justice for political reasons. Andrew Tate, top G from the podium.
From the podium. And I only pray that Republicans can grow a backbone, stop crying their eyes out over old videos I made, and understand sometimes you have to be a bad guy to do the right thing, like Batman. And we need to clean the swamp, lock these people up, teach them all a lesson.
Now, Benny calling Tate a victim after Tate bragged for years about the things that he's been arrested for is wild. And Donald Trump's lawyer even jumped in to say this.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm a big fan.
And just as a rule of thumb, when you're interviewing someone who's being investigated for crimes as serious as Tate's, you should probably be pushing back pretty hard and press him on the facts surrounding his charges. But Benny and Trump's lawyer didn't, and this isn't the first time that leading conservative figures have taken this approach of Tate. I mean, we can all remember how Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson's interviews with Tate went as well. To say that Benny, Candace, and Tucker gave Tate softball interviews would be a massive understatement. They practically went out of their way to help him deceive the public about his charges. So as you can imagine, those who believe that the Conservative Party should be united by conservative values have said things like this.
He rips off thousands of people with his scam Hustlers University. He preaches the virtue of treating women in a way you would never ever allow anyone to treat your wife or your daughter.
And Shapiro wasn't alone here. Liz Wheeler, Lila Rose, and others have criticized Tate's embrace by conservative influencers as well. And seemingly in response to the pushback, Benny made a couple of tweets about it and even quoted Jesus saying, "He who is without sin cast the first stone," seemingly implying that we can't judge the actions of Tate since we too are sinners. But as we'll come to see, this entirely misses the point. Other proclaimed conservative Christians like Russell Brand and Candace Owens also jumped to defend Benny and Tate. Candace even argued that conservatives who made their careers by using free speech shouldn't criticize Benny for interviewing Andrew Tate. But not everyone accepted this criticism. People like David Wood pointed out that her statement was entirely hypocritical, while several others pointed out that those defending Benny seemed to ultimately be missing the point of the criticism. One issue is that Tate is actively against conservative and Christian values, even a few days ago saying things like this.
Don't let these conservative losers tell you, get married. No. Ben Shapiro, little Jew. The reason they'll say Andrew Tate's a bad guy is really because they know I get to live free and do what I want, live with my friends, and have endless children from endless beauty queens.
And the other issue with people like Benny Host and Tate isn't the fact that they platformed him, but instead it's the apparent refusal to push him about these serious allegations and essentially doing PR for him. They always seem to claim having some degree of ignorance about his case while assuming that the charges against him have no merit.
It's a disgrace what they're doing. Obviously I don't know the facts of your case, but I know that they probably wouldn't be happening if you were not yourself. And that's very similar to my client.
But despite the defenses, Tate's own words tell a different story. When it comes to these indefensible clips of Tate admitting to exactly what he's being charged with, they all, as well as Tate, claim that these clips were over a decade ago.
My webcam company, things that happened 10 years ago. And that was a past life. You're talking about something that happened 10 years ago. 10 years ago. From 10 years ago. From 10 years ago. Things from 10 years ago. The idea that you did something 10 years ago.
I also take exception to, I think, digging back 10 years.
But even a quick look at the facts prove otherwise, because if that were the case, then how do you explain him saying things like this?
I also have an OnlyFans business. For the last 2 to 3 years, I was making money on OnlyFans from its inception all the way up till now. Right now, during the pandemic, OnlyFans is blowing up. So you want your girls to be elite, I'm going to teach you how to do that.
Both Andrew Tate and Tristan both bragged about these things until right before they got arrested.
It's my OnlyFans management agency. If you want to see how I've done this year so far in the midst of a pandemic.
But that's on the Tates. The problem is that the same right-wing conservative influencers who consistently talk about how evil porn is decide to not only platform a man who literally made his money from porn.
I first made my millions of dollars. The first time I ever became a millionaire was with Webcam Studio.
But they could also easily find evidence that Tate is lying about his alleged charges if they wanted to, since it's been all over the internet for years now. This apparent hypocrisy is glaring, condemning porn while publicly promoting someone who made his fortune on it. And if integrity and truth are no longer a priority, then what does that say about the future of the movement? This raises the question, are these influencers united by conservative and Christian values anymore? Well, no, I don't believe they are. There seems to be a new loyalty at play here that reveals what's really driving the movement today. Before we get into that, did you know that American homeowners nationwide have over $32 trillion in equity? And cybercriminals are targeting it with a growing scam that FBI calls house stealing. House alarms, doorbell cameras, and deadbolts won't work against these thieves because they're not after your stuff. Instead, they're after your equity. If your title isn't being monitored, scammers can transfer the title of your home into their name using a one-page document they file at the county, and then they can take out loans against it or even sell it behind your back. And the scariest part? You won't even find out until collection or even foreclosure notices start arriving in your mailbox, but by then, the damage has been done and you're left with a financial and a legal nightmare. So the best way to protect your equity is with triple lock protection from our friends at Home Title Lock. Title Lock protection is 24/7 monitoring, alerts of any changes, and if the worst happens, restoration services at no out-of-pocket cost to you. So when's the last time you checked on your title? If you're like me, the answer is probably never. And that's exactly what these scammers are counting on. But you can check on your home title today to make sure that you're not already a victim. You can get a free title history report and a 30-day free trial of triple lock protection today by going to HometitleLock.com and using the promo code MEME or click the link in the description. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code MEME. And thank you to Home Title Lock for sponsoring this portion of the video, as it really does make a huge difference for us. All right, now back to the video. So what's this new loyalty that's driving the conservative movement today, and what caused it to change? Well, as far as I can tell, much of this started with how a lot of conservative Christians handled Trump's past immorality. Instead of rebuking his apparent infidelity, divorces, and controversial statements, a lot of people treated them as trivial and dismissed legitimate concerns as leftist attacks. And we saw the same thing happen when it came to people like Andrew Tate, who co-opted this same strategy under the name of a Matrix attack.
The Matrix has attacked me.
Framing all legitimate criticisms as a conspiracy. And on top of that, a lot of today's conservative influencers have lifestyles that contradict its traditional values. Dave Rubin, for example, recently had a child through surrogacy with his husband. Caitlyn Jenner and Blair White are both trans, and Trump's support for certain broad abortion exceptions has played a major role in shifting the party away from its once firm pro-life stance. Now, of course, I have nothing against these people personally. My only point is to highlight the fact that this would have been unheard of several years ago due to the conflicts with core conservative values. This shift in priorities have led conservatives to embrace figures like Tate, who's unmarried, has multiple children with different mothers, and quite literally built his fortune by exploiting women and vulnerable men through pornography.
And I became a multi-millionaire. I did this by creating a webcam studio. We were taking their money, all of it.
And Elon Musk, who's also married and has 12 children from multiple women. Or even Amber Rose, an atheist who launched the famous slut walk, encouraging women to be promiscuous. Now, it's one thing to have a past. Everyone does. That is not the issue. The real issue is that these figures appear to be unrepentant and openly embrace lifestyles contrary to traditional conservative values. So allowing them to be spokesmen for the movement seems problematic if they're supposed to be united on conservative values. But it's clear that they aren't. So if not things like family values, what does unite the conservative party today? Well, the answer is simple: contrarian figures who oppose the left. The new conservative movement's highest loyalty no longer seems to be to positive values like morality or biblical principles. Instead, their primary allegiance is to one thing: being anti-woke. Over time, countless conservatives have shifted from standing for something to simply standing against the left, even if that means embracing figures who actively undermine their same core values. And this change, this shift, it doesn't just affect political discussions, it also impacts how conservative Christians are perceived and how they influence culture. And ultimately, this compromises the Christian witness, making it harder to present a consistent and credible message to the world, and it also weakens the church's ability to disciple and lead with integrity. So this is the danger of allowing ourselves to be more united to a political party than the principles of Christ. Without us even realizing that is happening, we're quickly going from holding to classical Christian ethics like being anti-abortion to actively embracing it due to a shift in the political thinking of our party. And as these man-made and worldly systems continue to change, our loyalty to Christ above these changes shouldn't. We should follow Christ first, even when it's difficult, and not only when it's convenient. So to say that this is the end of the conservative Christian movement might be hyperbolic, but the point still remains. Christian conservatives who are firmly rooted in biblical values are becoming increasingly rare, and their influence likely won't survive much longer if we don't fix the problem. And the solution isn't abandoning politics, but instead ensuring that our deepest convictions are shaped by God's word rather than political lines. Because, as Paul says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. I believe that if we're intentional about this, then we can break this trend. And it starts with each one of us taking an honest step back and asking ourselves, are we truly following Christ first, or are we just following the crowd? Now in this video, we only scratched the surface because I wasn't able to get into more details. So if you enjoyed this video, then go ahead and hit the like button on your way out, and then check out one of these videos where I provide strong evidence that I wasn't able to include here. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you over there.